Imagine the deep hum of Memphis, the soulful rhythm of its streets suddenly pierced by something utterly impossible. Strange ethereal lights dancing above Graceland, and a voice unmistakable yet otherworldly warning of a danger that threatens to steal the very soul of the city. Imagine the deep hum of Memphis, the soulful rhythm of its streets suddenly pierced by something utterly impossible. Strange ethereal lights dancing above Graceland, and a voice unmistakable yet otherworldly warning of a danger that threatens to steal the very soul of the city. That's where our story truly begins, in Memphis, a city that breathes rhythm and hums with history, where for generations the very soul of this place has been woven into its fabric, from the raw soulful Beale Street blues to the uplifting gospel hymns echoing through sun-drenched churches, and of course the unparalleled legacy of a king who forever changed the world from a modest mansion on Audubon Drive. But then one humid summer night a new unsettling note began to play in the city's vibrant symphony. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly at first, a shimmering distortion in the thick hazy air above Graceland, barely a ripple in the calm night. Yet the shimmering grew, slowly coalescing into distinct points of light, not like familiar stars nor distant aircraft, but something truly ethereal, pulsing with an internal, unearthly glow. These searchlights piercing the darkness. They were living embers dancing with an unnatural grace, casting long, wavering shadows across the hallowed grounds, across the very mansion where legend resided. A few unsuspecting locals out for a late-night drive were the very first to witness this spectacle, their casual observations quickly turning to stunned, wittied silence. Phones inevitably came out, flashes popping uselessly against the otherworldly luminescence. Yet the lights persisted, growing steadily in both intensity and sheer number, an undeniable escalating presence. This wasn't a fleeting meteor shower, nor some secret government project, nor any ordinary natural phenomenon. This was profoundly different, imbued with an ancient stillness that felt both alien and strangely hauntingly familiar. As if from a forgotten dream, as these enigmatic lights pulsed with their own rhythm, a faint sound began to ripple through the warm, humid Memphis air. At first it was indistinct, like a distant whisper carried on a forgotten wind, a half-remembered melody just beyond the edge of hearing. But then, as more and more people gathered, drawn by the irresistible pull of the inexplicable spectacle, sound solidified, gaining both form and an undeniable clarity. It was a voice known intimately to billions across the globe. A voice that had once effortlessly commanded stages and captivated hearts worldwide with every note, every inflection. It was Elvis, not a recording, not some skilled impersonator trying to recreate a fading memory, but an impossible, deeply resonant baritone laced with an urgency that chilled listeners to the very bone, penetrating deeper than any physical cold. Listen to me, danger approaches, they seek the heart, the soul. The words, fragmented and echoing eerily, seemed to emanate directly from the very air around Graceland, a disembodied, terrifyingly real warning from the spirit of the king himself. Panic. Initially, a slow, creeping burn began to swiftly ignite across the city. This wasn't some elaborate prank. The sheer unsettling reality of the voice, coupled with the utterly spectral lights, was undeniable, too visceral to be dismissed. News crews scrambled their live feeds, capturing the awestruck, trembling faces of onlookers, the trembling cameras themselves struggling valiantly to focus on the impossible, to capture proof of what their eyes were witnessing. The phenomenon quickly became known colloquially as the Graceland glow. But those who heard the voice, those who felt the cold dread that accompanied its spectral, insistent warnings, knew deep down it was something far, far more profound, something that transcended simple light. The warnings grew more explicit, more desperate. Over the following days, the voice would burst forth at unpredictable, unnerving moments, sometimes a low, gravelly growl of profound concern, other times a booming, desperate plea filled with an ancient, weary sorrow. They will silence the music, steal the joy, turn rhythm to dust. The lights, meanwhile, began to spread ominously beyond the hallowed grounds of Graceland, appearing briefly over the vibrant chaos of Beale Street, then over the majestic, slow-moving Mississippi River, always accompanied by a chilling, inexplicable dip in temperature, and a profound, pervasive sense of unease that settled deep in one's bones. People felt their energy draining away, their usual vibrant, indomitable Memphis spirit, slowly, inexorably dimming like a flickering candle, the city usually alive. Symphony of sound seemed to hold its collective breath. Paralyzed musicians found their fingers fumbling on their instruments, their once powerful voices cracking, unable to find the right notes. The very essence of Memphis, its undeniable pulsating rhythm, felt profoundly threatened, not just psychologically, but tangibly. Something powerful and malevolent was undeniably at play, a sinister force attempting to drain the city's intrinsic creative life force. The true source of this encroaching darkness, however, remained frustratingly elusive, cloaked in shadow and an ancient malice that stretched back through time. But for those who knew the hidden history, who remembered the hushed whispers and the long-forgotten shadows of a bygone era, a chilling, terrifying realization began to dawn. There were rivalries that ran deeper than mere chart positions or fleeting fame. Adoration. There were shadows cast by immense, unbridled talent, shadows that festered into bitter, consuming resentment over decades, even centuries. An old adversary consumed by jealousy that had only intensified exponentially with the relentless passage of time, had found a way to bridge the veil between worlds. Not content with mere earthly success or fleeting fame, this forgotten figure had delved into forbidden knowledge, delving into secrets humanity was never meant to uncover, ultimately summoning dark, unspeakable force from beyond the very edges of human comprehension. Their ultimate target, the very soul of Memphis itself, Why Memphis, you might ask? Because Memphis was not merely a city on a map. It was an epicenter of unparalleled creation, a sacred crucible, where music, raw passion, and unrelenting struggle had forged an indomitable, resilient spirit. Its very soul was a vibrant living tapestry woven from generations of the blues of rock and roll, of powerful gospel, and the sheer unyielding grit of its people. To steal Memphis's soul was not to merely destroy buildings or to silence individual voices. It was to erase the cultural heartbeat of an entire era, to nullify the very essence of creativity, of joy, of defiant hope that had flowed abundantly from its storied streets for over a century. This rival, whose name has long been painstakingly erased from the annals of popular culture, sought to absorb that immense power, to claim it entirely as their own, and in doing so finally eclipse the king they could never surpass in life. A bitter eternal struggle, the dark force once summoned from the abyss, began its insidious, suffocating work. With terrifying efficiency, it manifested as a creeping shadow, a palpable heavy chill that settled over the entire city, slowly, relentlessly sapping its vibrant energy. Colors duller, muted, laughter became less frequent, a strained, forced sound, and the ubiquitous sound of music, the very lifeblood of Memphis, began to diminish, replaced by an unsettling, profound quiet that echoed through the empty spaces. Despair, a heavy, suffocating blanket, began to settle over the hearts and minds of its unsuspecting citizens, a creeping malaise. This was the true terrifying danger. Not mere physical destruction, but complete, agonizing spiritual annihilation, a wiping away of identity, as the beloved city began to wilt and fade under the ever-deepening shadow of this encroaching darkness. The spectral manifestations of Elvis grew stronger, more defined, more tangible. He was no longer just a disembodied voice or a shimmering light in the distance. He was a powerful presence, ethereal yet undeniably there, a towering figure seemingly composed of pure light and vivid memory. He was half-spirit, inextricably connected to the spiritual plane, yet also half-legend, powerfully forged from the collective belief and adoration of billions of fans worldwide. His famous dazzling sequin jumpsuits were replaced by an aura of pure, blinding luminescence, his iconic pompadour now a radiant corona of shimmering energy that pulsed with ancient power. His eyes, though lacking pupils in their spectral form, radiated an ancient wisdom and an unwavering, unbreakable resolve that spoke volumes. Without a word, he was not a ghost trapped in an earthly prison. He was a king returned, fueled by an immeasurable love for his kingdom, for his people. His ultimate purpose was undeniably clear: to defend Memphis, to protect its very soul. But how, one might ponder, does a spirit fight a dark force that feeds directly on despair, on the very absence of hope? Elvis, the living legend, had to tap into his ultimate raw power, the very essence of his transformative music, his unparalleled charisma, his unbreakable connection to the people who adored him. He began to appear in moments of extreme, crushing despair, not just to offer a fleeting warning, but to deeply inspire, to ignite a dormant fire on Beale Street, where the blues had once wailed with raw emotion. And now only a profound, unsettling silence reigned. Elvis's spectral form would manifest with a sudden, breathtaking brilliance. His hands, though intangible, would move as if strumming a phantom guitar, and from the suffocating silence, a faint yet undeniably powerful blues riff would begin to emanate, raw and electric. It wasn't just sound waves. It was a pure infusion of emotion, a jolt of raw feeling, a surge of defiant life that pierced the encroaching gloom. People would stop dead in their tracks, their vacant eyes suddenly snapping into sharp focus, a spark of recognition, a flicker of forgotten hope rekindling within them like a long-lost flame. The sound would build not from hidden speakers, but from the very air itself, from the rough concrete underfoot, from the deep throbbing heart of the city itself. A primal roar, it was the primal, untamed energy. Rock and roll, the unadulterated passion that had defined his extraordinary life, pulsing with renewed vigor. This was his chosen weapon, his ultimate defense. The dark force, however, was not easily deterred or vanquished. It retaliated with a chilling ferocity, by amplifying the despair, twisting cherished memories, filling minds with overwhelming dread and terrifying illusions. It would create dark reflections of past failures and agonizing regrets, aiming to utterly break the spirit of the people, making them ripe, pliable, and defenseless for its ultimate consumption. The air around the iconic Memphis pyramid, once a bold beacon of progress and ambition, would grow heavy, suffocating, almost as if the colossal structure itself was silently weeping tears of despair. The majestic flow of the Mississippi, a lifeblood for centuries, seemed to slow to a crawl, its vast waters reflecting a murky, ominous hue that spoke of unseen horrors. This was undeniably a total war for the soul, fought on a deeply spiritual plane, with the very fabric of Memphis serving as the sacred ultimate battlefield. Elvis, in his luminous, defiant form, became the city's countercurrent, a powerful tide pushing back against the encroaching darkness. He moved through the streets, a majestic beacon of pure defiance, a living testament to resilience. He wasn't just performing for an audience. He was channeling, embodying the very essence of hope. His ghostly, ethereal renditions of Heartbreak Hotel were no longer songs of sorrow or lament, but transformed into anthems of unyielding resilience and enduring strength. Jailhouse Rock became a powerful rallying cry against the invisible spiritual chains of despair that sought to shackle the city. His very presence ignited a fervent hope, reminding the people of their own inherent unbreakable strength, their own vibrant, defiant rhythm that could not be Silenced, he was drawing on the collective memory of every sold-out concert, every electrifying show, every single moment of pure, unadulterated joy he had ever brought to the world, amplifying it. A millionfold, he was using the raw, unyielding power of Asterisk legend itself to fight back. The climax of this unseen battle approached rapidly. As the dark force reached its absolute peak, attempting a final devastating surge to consume Memphis entirely, to extinguish its light forever. The light. Graceland, once shimmering warnings of its approach, now pulsed with a dangerous, malevolent energy, threatening to snuff out the last flickering vestiges of joy and hope in the city. The voice of Elvis. 2 reached a deafening crescendo, but this time it was no longer a warning. It was a defiant, earth-shattering challenge, echoing with the thunder of 1,000 generations. You will not take my home. You will not silence my music. Memphis will endure. His spectral form grew immense, impossibly vast, towering majestically over the entire city. A titan of pure light standing resolute against the encroaching hungry shadows. The very air crackled with a monumental, volatile energy, a violent collision of unseen forces imperceptible to mortal eyes, but felt deep within the very core of every soul. From Elvis, a colossal wave of pure concentrated sound emanated, not just mere music, but the very essence of joy, of freedom, of defiant unyielding. Rhythm itself, it was a symphony woven from every searing guitar riff, every soulful, heartfelt lyric, every hip-shaking, irresistible beat that had ever spilled forth from the vibrant streets of Memphis. It was the immeasurable power of collective memory, amplified beyond measure by an undying legend. This was no ordinary sound wave. It was a vibrational current meticulously designed to dismantle despair, to utterly shatter the spiritual chains forged by the dark force. The dark force shrieked a sound unheard by human ears, but deeply, terribly felt, a sound of pure, unadulterated agony, as the blinding light and irresistible rhythm pierced its shadowy, malevolent essence. It recoiled violently, unable to withstand the raw, untamed power of Memphis's true, unconquerable soul, channeled directly through its greatest, most beloved son. Shadow began to dissipate, shrinking rapidly, receding into nothingness, driven back by the pure, unadulterated power of rock and roll. And the collective spirit it had awakened anew. The malevolent lights over Graceland flickered erratically, then vanished, completely replaced by the soft, hopeful glow of a rising dawn. The heavy blanket of despair lifted entirely, as if a great crushing weight had been miraculously removed from the city's shoulders. Color vividly returned to the world. Laughter bubbled up spontaneously from every street corner, and the streets of Memphis, once eerily hushed, began to hum once more with their familiar, vibrant, unstoppable rhythm. The music which had faltered and almost died returned with renewed, fervent passion, louder, more soulful, more profound than ever before. The city had been thoroughly cleansed. Reborn Elvis, though undeniably victorious, did not remain indefinitely. His immense luminous form gradually receded, fading back into the ether, from whence he came, becoming once again a shimmering distortion above Graceland. Then nothing but the warmth of a rising sun on a clear morning. He was a guardian, a protector, not a permanent resident in the mortal realm. He had risen from beyond the veil to protect his kingdom, his home, proving irrevocably that true kings defend their people, their precious legacy, and their very spirit, even from beyond the veil of life and death. Even from the unseen, the city of Memphis, though forever changed and bearing the indelible marks of the spectral battle, emerged profoundly stronger. Its soul more vibrant, its music more profound, its rhythm more unshakable than ever. The incredible story of the king who returned became another indelible chapter in its rich, storied tapestry, a powerful reminder that legends never truly die. They simply wait patiently for the moment their kingdom needs them most, waiting in the wings. And every now and then, when the wind blows just right through the historic streets of Memphis, or a guitar riff hits a particular resonant chord that stirs the soul, you might just feel a shiver down your spine, a faint, lingering echo of a familiar voice and an unspoken, knowing smile that the king is still watching over his beloved kingdom, forever its guardian spirit. The city of Memphis, once a vibrant tapestry of sound and spirit, had indeed begun to wilt, a pall of unnatural quiet settling over its famed streets, replacing the spontaneous hum of guitars and the joyous shouts of its people with an unsettling silence, the pervasive chill, the drain of energy, the dimming of colors. These weren't merely symptoms. They were the insidious tendrils of the dark force, slowly constricting the very breath of Memphis musicians, found their fingers fumbling their voices, cracking the innate rhythm that had defined their lives. Now elusive, a ghost in their own souls, despair thick and suffocating, had become the city's new anthem, threatening to drown out every memory of joy. But then, as the encroaching shadow pressed its heaviest, a new act of defiance began to stir. Elvis, the spectral king, no longer content with disembodied warnings, manifest with a tangible purpose, his ethereal form growing more defined, less a shimmering distortion, and more a beacon of luminescent intent. His initial forays were tentative, almost experimental, aimed at the very heart of the city's spiritual paralysis. One particularly bleak evening on Beale Street, where the neon glow of bygone nights now seemed to mock the profound silence, a lone, weary bluesman sat slumped against a brick wall, his guitar lying idle beside him, his eyes vacant, reflecting only the overwhelming gloom. As a single tear traced a path down his weathered cheek, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer began to coalesce directly before him. It was Elvis, or rather the raw essence of him, a shimmering outline of a hand moving, as if plucking phantom strings from the oppressive silence. A low guttural blues riff, ancient and deeply soulful, began to emanate not from a speaker, but from the very air itself vibrating through the cobblestones resonating deep within the bluesman's chest. It was a sound that defied logic, bypassed reason, and went straight to the heart. The bluesman, initially startled, then confused, slowly raised his head, his vacant eyes snapping into focus as the sound built, gaining strength, clarity, and an undeniable emotional punch. It was a jolt not just of sound, but of raw, untamed feeling. Infusion of pure musical passion that pierced the gloom like a spear of sunlight. A spark long extinguished flickered within his gaze, a forgotten memory of joy and defiant rhythm rekindling. His fingers hitched, then slowly, hesitantly reached for his own guitar, finding a forgotten chord in response to the ethereal melody. This was the first true instance of Elvis's new battle strategy. Not through physical confrontation, but through an awakening, a reignition of the very spirit the dark force sought to extinguish. The effect rippled. Other musicians, drawn by the inexplicable stirrings, felt similar jolts, a primal urge to play, to sing, to create, even amidst the heavy despair. It was an internal revolution, a subtle yet profound shift in the city's spiritual landscape. The dark force, sensing this countercurrent, retaliated with a chilling ferocity. It amplified the despair, weaving insidious illusions, twisting cherished memories into agonizing regrets, flooding minds with the echoes of past failures. The air around the iconic Memphis pyramid, once a bold symbol of ambition, grew heavy, suffocating, as if the very structure wept tears of collective sorrow. The reflective glass, now mirroring only deep, ominous hues. The majestic flow of the Mississippi, once a lifeblood, seemed to slow its waters, reflecting a murky, unsettling darkness, its ceaseless current almost hesitant. This was indeed a total war for the soul, fought on a plane unseen by mortal eyes, with the vibrant beating heart of Memphis serving as the sacred ultimate battlefield. Yet Elvis, in his luminous, increasingly powerful form, became the city's unwavering countercurrent, a powerful tide, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. He wasn't just appearing. He was channeling, embodying the very essence of defiant hope. He moved through the hushed streets, a majestic beacon of pure, unyielding defiance, a living testament to resilience. His ghostly, ethereal renditions of Heartbreak Hotel were no longer songs of sorrow or lament, but transformed into anthems of unyielding resilience and enduring strength, resonating with a new, defiant meaning. Jailhouse Rock, once a playful tune of rebellion, became a powerful rallying cry against the invisible spiritual chains of despair that sought to shackle the city, its phantom chords thrumming with newfound purpose. His very presence, though intangible, ignited a fervent hope, reminding the people of their own inherent unbreakable strength, their own vibrant, defiant rhythm that could not be silenced. He was drawing on the collective memory of every sold-out concert, every electrifying show, every single moment of pure, unadulterated joy he had ever brought to the world, amplifying it a millionfold within the spiritual fabric of Memphis. He was using the raw, unyielding power of Asterisk, legend itself, forged from billions of memories and countless hours of adoration, to fight back against the encroaching void. The people of Memphis, initially bewildered, then cautiously hopeful, began to respond. It wasn't an instant mass awakening, but a slow, arduous process. Individual sparks of hope would ignite, only to be threatened by the overwhelming despair the dark force constantly radiated. There were moments of profound inner conflict, where citizens wrestled with the seductive numbness of surrender versus the arduous path of fighting back, even against an unseen enemy. Some, overwhelmed, simply succumbed to the gloom, their lights dimming completely. But others, touched by Elvis's spectral presence, by the phantom thrum of his guitar, felt an ancient resolve stir within them. They began to hum melodies they hadn't heard in days, tap their feet to an internal rhythm, or simply find the strength to offer a comforting word to a neighbor. These were tiny victories, yet profoundly significant. Each rediscovered melody, each flicker of hope, was a direct blow against the dark force which thrived on silence and sorrow. Elvis was not just performing. He was conducting a symphony of spiritual awakening, a collective memory brought to life. He appeared in the quietest, most forgotten corners of the city, not just the famous landmarks. He'd manifest near a lonely street lamp. A shimmering silhouette and a faint gospel choir sung by his impossible voice would begin to echo, filling the emptiness with a profound sense of peace and divine strength. In the city's forgotten juke joints, where laughter had been replaced by a heavy quiet, Elvis's phantom presence would ignite. Single spectral spotlight, and the undeniable energy of rock and roll would pulse through the dust-laden air, urging forgotten dancers to twitch, then sway, then move with a forgotten abandon. These weren't grand spectacles for cameras. They were intimate, intensely personal interventions designed to rekindle the individual sparks that collectively fueled Memphis's soul. As these individual sparks began to multiply, weaving together like threads in a tapestry, a subtle transformation began to occur. The city, though still under attack, began to breathe again. The pervasive chill lessened in certain areas. The dullness of colors momentarily brightened, and faint echoes of laughter, hesitant at first, began to return. The despair still loomed, a heavy cloud, but now there were breaks in it, cracks through which the revitalizing light of hope could filter. The dark force, feeling its grip subtly loosening, intensified its assault, unleashing more potent illusions, deeper wells of regret, and even manifesting as shadowy figures that whispered taunts of inevitable failure. The battle became more direct, more visceral. Elvis, in response, grew in intensity, his luminous form radiating a greater power. He began to project not just sounds, but emotion swaths of joy, defiance, and a profound, unwavering love for his home. This was the king's true reinvention. From earthly entertainer to spiritual warrior, using the very essence of his legend, the collective memory of his power to move souls as his ultimate weapon, The people of Memphis, now more aware of the unseen war, began to rally not with physical weapons, but with acts of kindness, impromptu bursts of song, and shared defiance. This wasn't just Elvis fighting. It was Memphis fighting for itself, guided by its spectral king. The initial struggle was arduous, the victory small and hard one. But each one chipped away at the darkness, proving that the soul of Memphis, though tested, was not easily broken, a testament to the resilience imbued by generations of rhythm and blues. This was the dawn of the counteroffensive, the first glimmering signs that the king had indeed returned, not just to warn, but to reclaim his kingdom's soul. The whisper of hope, once a fragile spark, had indeed begun to catch in Memphis, fanned by the spectral breath of the King. Beale Street, which had slumped into a melancholic hush, now twitched with faint, almost subliminal rhythms. A collective phantom limb, remembering the dance musicians once paralyzed, found their fingers instinctively brushing against dormant strings. A tenant melody here, a quiet hum there. Elvis, the luminous countercurrent, wasn't just appearing anymore. He was a conductor, his intangible baton coaxing a symphony of resistance from the city's bruised, but not broken spirit. His presence was more frequent, his purpose clearer, his form often coalescing from the very air, a beacon of defiant light against the encroaching shadows. This second coming of the king, however, brought its own profound weight, for the dark force, relentless and insidious, was far from vanquished. It adapted like a cunning predator, understanding now that its prey was stirring. Its tactics shifted from blanket despair to a more surgical, chilling precision. It began to probe the individual cracks in the city's resolve, amplifying personal fears, twisting cherished memories into agonizing regrets, making each citizen feel uniquely isolated in their struggle. It was a silent war on identity, making people doubt not just the future, but their own past, their own worth. A retired blues singer, haunted by a single botched performance decades ago, found the memory replaying endlessly, a cruel loop orchestrated by the malevolent presence threatening to silence her voice. Forever a young artist struggling with creative block, saw all her past works reduced to dust in her mind's eye, the dark force, whispering that her talent was a lie, her dreams hollow. These weren't just psychological attacks. They felt visceral, draining, stealing the very joy from the pursuit of art, of connection, of life itself. The pressure on Elvis, too, was immense, an invisible burden felt even by his spectral form. He was no longer just a legend. He was the city's last best hope, a spiritual shield absorbing blow after blow. He felt the collective despair of Memphis, not as an external force, but as an ache in his own shimmering essence. There were moments, fleeting but perceptible, when his light would flicker, a momentary dimming, as if the sheer exertion was too much even for a king. He wasn't a god, he was a legend. And legends were forged from human emotion, from belief, from love, but they could also be strained, stretched thin by the relentless assault of pure malice. He wrestled with an internal conflict. Was he enough? Could his music, his charisma, truly defeat this ancient evil that preyed on the very soul? The whispers of the dark force, though unheard by mortals, seeped into his spectral consciousness. You are just a man, your time is over, this is not your fight, retreat, rest. It was an attempt to make him doubt his own purpose, to make him believe his legacy was merely a fading echo, not a living weapon. Yet this internal struggle only forged a deeper resolve. He understood now that this wasn't just about playing a melody. It was about instilling courage, fortifying belief, forging an unbreakable unity amongst the fragmented spirits of Memphis. His appearances became less about grand stadium-filling performances, and more about intimate, intensely personal interventions. He'd appear to the blues singer not with a full band, but with the phantom echo of her own grandmother's voice, a memory of encouragement from her childhood, amplified by his presence, dissolving the dark illusion. For the young artist, he'd manifest as a fleeting shimmer of light across a blank canvas, accompanied by a single perfect note reminding her that creativity was an endless wellspring, not a finite resource. He began to project not just sounds, but vivid, visceral memories of shared joy. The roaring crowd at a packed concert, the communal laughter on a sun-drenched street, the defiant spirit of protest songs sung together. These weren't his memories alone. They were Memphis's memories, the collective joy that fueled its unique soul, amplified a millionfold through his spectral conduit. The dark force, in its escalating desperation, then attempted its most insidious attack. To sow discord, to turn the people of Memphis against each other. It magnified petty grievances, resurrected old feuds, filled minds with suspicion and distrust, aiming to shatter the community from within. Neighbors, once supportive, eyed each other warily. Families felt unspoken tensions fester. The music, which had begun to return, started to sound dissonant, fractured. This was the true test of unity, the point where resilience was truly pushed to its breaking point. Elvis, seeing this internal fracturing, knew he had to transcend even the power of his music. He began to appear not just in moments of individual despair, but in gatherings, however small, of conflicted citizens. His luminous form would pulse with a pure, unadulterated wave. Love and acceptance, a palpable spiritual force that washed over the room, momentarily cleansing the air of distrust. He projected a sense of shared destiny, of interconnectedness, reminding them that their strength lay in their collective spirit, in the harmony of their diverse voices. He became a spectral unifier, urging them silently to forgive, to understand, to remember their shared history, their common love for this city. This was the king's final, most profound transformation. shedding any lingering attachment to the solace of the afterlife, fully embracing his role as the living embodiment of Memphis's defiant spirit. He became the very soul of the city, not just its guardian. He carried its burden, absorbed its lingering despair, and in turn transmuted it into raw, unyielding resilience. This wasn't merely a battle. It was a painful, arduous birth of a new Memphis forged. Fire guided by its king, the Dark Force, sensing this newfound, albeit fragile unity, unleashed a devastating, focused assault. It concentrated its shadowy essence over the very heart of the city's music district, attempting to silence Beale Street entirely, to freeze the rhythm at its source. The air grew impossibly heavy, the temperature plunged, and a deafening, oppressive silence descended, sucking all sound into a void. It was a final, desperate attempt to sever the lifeline, to plunge Memphis back into eternal despair. But this time something was different from the silence. A single defiant guitar chord resonated, not from Elvis alone, but from hundreds of instruments across the city, picked up by hands that had remembered their purpose. Then a voice, not just the king's, but dozens, hundreds, thousands of voices, hesitant at first, then soaring, joining in a chorus of defiance. Elvis, immense and radiant, channeled this collective power, amplifying it, focusing it into a singular wave of pure, unadulterated Memphis soul. The city, though still scarred, had truly begun to fight back, not as passive recipients of salvation, but as active participants in their own spiritual redemption. Each beat of music, each whispered word of comfort, a blow against the encroaching night. The ultimate victory was not yet won, but the middle phase of this harrowing journey had transformed Memphis and its spectral king into something far more formidable than either had ever been before. The oppressive silence that had descended upon Beale Street, a void sucking all sound and joy, was the Dark Force's final, desperate gamble, a malignant attempt to sever Memphis's lifeline, to freeze its rhythm at the source, and plunge the city into eternal despair. It was the deepest shadow, yet a suffocating blanket, woven from every lingering doubt, every hidden fear, every fragmented memory of failure that still clung to the city's soul. The air crackled with a malevolent cold, pressing down on every heart, threatening to extinguish the last flicker of resistance. Yet in that profound, terrifying stillness, something began to stir, not from Elvis alone, but from the very core of Memphis itself. A defiant, rising hum. It started as the single resonant guitar chord, a brave tremor against the void, emerging not just from the hand of a reawakened musician, but from instruments across the city, picked up by hands that had remembered their purpose, their muscle memory ignited by the spectral king. Then a voice, hesitant at first, then gaining strength, a fragile thread of sound that began to weave into a tapestry. It wasn't solely the king's impossible baritone this time. It was dozens, hundreds, thousands of voices, the collective breath of Memphis, once stifled, now soaring, joining in a rising chorus of defiance. This was the moment of true reinvention, not just for Elvis, but for the entire city. Elvis, immense and radiant, no longer merely a guardian, but now truly the living embodiment of Memphis's soul, felt this surge, this wave of collective spirit. His luminous form pulsed with an unprecedented power, drawing on the immense wellspring of joy, sorrow, defiance, and love that had always defined his home. He wasn't just amplifying their music. He was channeling it, focusing this raw, unadulterated Memphis soul into a singular, overwhelming wave. Every note sung, every string plucked, every beat tapped was a direct, visceral blow against the encroaching night. This was Memphis fighting for itself, not as passive recipients of salvation, but as active participants in their own spiritual redemption. Each beat of music, each whispered word of comfort, each shared smile, a defiant act against the pervasive gloom. The Dark Force shrieked, a sound unheard by mortal ears, but felt deep within the soul, a profound agony as the light and rhythm pierced its shadowy essence. It recoiled violently, its form flickering, distorting, unable to withstand the raw, untamed power of Memphis's true, unconquerable spirit, channeled directly through its greatest, most beloved son. The climax was a maelstrom of unseen energies, a spiritual clash that vibrated through the very foundations of the city. Elvis, a titan of pure light, stood at its epicenter, his hands, though ethereal, moving, as if conducting the grandest symphony, drawing every ounce of musical energy, every drop of collective courage from his people. His eyes, though without pupils, radiated an ancient wisdom, a fierce love for his home, and an unyielding resolve that mirrored the defiant spirit of every Memphian who had chosen to stand against the dark. He wasn't just performing his hits. He was performing the soul of Memphis, weaving together the deep blues, the electrifying rock, and roll, the uplifting gospel, the raw grit, and the unbridled joy into a single devastating sonic force. This was the ultimate comeback, not just for a fallen king, but for a city that had faced annihilation and chosen through music and unity to reclaim its very essence. The Dark Force, unable to withstand this onslaught of pure, unadulterated life force, began to unravel. Its tendrils of despair retracted, shriveling into nothingness as the vibrant sound washed over them. The oppressive silence shattered, replaced by an explosive return of sound, not just music, but the cacophony of life, of laughter, of honking horns, of distant sirens, of the Mississippi's steady flow. The malevolent lights over Graceland, which had pulsed with such a dangerous, hungry energy, flickered erratically, then vanished, completely replaced by the soft, warm glow of a rising dawn, painting the sky with hues of renewed hope. The heavy blanket of despair lifted, entirely dissolving like morning mist, as if a great crushing weight had been miraculously removed from the city's shoulders. Color vividly returned to the world, brighter, bolder than before. Laughter bubbled up spontaneously from every street corner, uninhibited and genuine. The streets of Memphis, once eerily hushed, began to hum once more with their familiar, vibrant, unstoppable rhythm. Music which had faltered and almost died returned with renewed fervent passion, louder, more soulful, more profound than ever before, each note carrying the echo of their shared battle and triumph. The city had been thoroughly cleansed, reborn, its spirit forged anew in the crucible of adversity. Elvis, though undeniably victorious, did not remain indefinitely in his tangible luminous form. His immense radiant presence gradually receded, fading back into the ether from whence he came, becoming once again a shimmering distortion above Graceland, the nothing but the warmth of the rising sun. On a clear morning he was a guardian, a protector, his role fulfilled, not a permanent resident in the mortal realm. He had risen from beyond the veil to protect his kingdom, his home, proving irrevocably that true kings defend their people, their precious legacy, and their very spirit, even from beyond the veil of life and death, even from the unseen forces that seek to extinguish joy. His transformation was complete. From earthly icon to eternal embodiment of Memphis's soul, the city of Memphis, though forever changed, and bearing the indelible marks of the spectral battle, emerged profoundly stronger, its soul more vibrant, its music more profound, its rhythm more unshakable than ever. The incredible story of the king who returned became another indelible chapter in its rich storied tapestry, a powerful reminder that legends never truly die. They simply wait patiently for the moment their kingdom needs them most, waiting in the wings of eternity. And every now and then, when the wind blows just right through the historic streets of Memphis, or a guitar riff hits a particular resonant chord that stirs the soul, you might just feel a shiver down your spine, a faint lingering echo of a familiar voice, and an unspoken knowing smile that the king is still watching over his beloved kingdom, forever its guardian spirit, a testament to the enduring power of music, love, and an unbreakable legacy. And so, as the first rays of dawn kissed the horizon, banishing the last vestiges of that oppressive, malevolent shadow, Memphis truly awakened, not just to a new day, but to a new self. The heavy blanket of despair, a chilling weight that had threatened to suffocate its very soul, lifted entirely, dissolving like morning mist under the sun's benevolent gaze. It was as if a great crushing burden had been miraculously removed from the city's shoulders, allowing it to breathe freely. Deeply, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, color flooded back into the world, vibrant and bold, painting the streets, the buildings, the very faces of its people with a brilliance that had been stolen away. Laughter, true uninhibited laughter, bubbled up spontaneously from every street corner, echoing off brick walls, rising above the hum of morning traffic, a joyful counterpoint to the haunting silence that had so recently prevailed. The streets of Memphis, once eerily hushed, began to thrum with their familiar, vibrant, unstoppable rhythm, a pulsating heartbeat that reverberated from the Mississippi's ancient flow to the iconic gates of Graceland. The music, which had faltered and almost died, had not merely returned. It surged forth with a renewed fervent passion, louder, more soulful, more profound than ever before. Each note, each chord, each beat now carried the indelible echo of their shared battle, their collective triumph, a powerful testament to a spirit that had faced annihilation and emerged not unscathed, but undeniably reborn. The city had been thoroughly cleansed, yes, but more than that, it had been forged anew, its spirit tempered in the crucible of adversity, its identity reaffirmed with an unshakable resolve. Elvis, spectral king, his mission accomplished, did not linger in his tangible, luminous form. His immense radiant presence, a titan of light against the encroaching shadows, gradually receded, fading back into the ether from whence he came. He became once again a shimmering distortion above Graceland, then nothing but the warmth of the rising sun. On a clear Memphis morning he was a guardian, a protector, his profound role fulfilled, not a permanent resident in the mortal realm. He had risen from beyond the veil, protect his kingdom, his home, proving irrevocably that true kings defend their people, their precious legacy, and their very spirit, even from beyond the veil of life and death, even from the unseen forces that seek to extinguish joy and silence. The music, his transformation was complete, a profound journey from earthly icon to eternal embodiment of Memphis's very soul. His legacy, once defined by records sold and stages conquered, now stretched far beyond, encompassing the spiritual resilience entire city. It was a testament to his own growth, not just as a performer, but as a symbolic figurehead, a conduit for the enduring power of collective belief in cultural heritage. This was the ultimate reinvention, a triumph not of celebrity but of spirit, proving that the king's influence was not merely mortal fame, but an immortal force. For Memphis the experience was equally transformative. It had been shown the true depth of its own soul, the potent magic woven into its cultural fabric by generations of artists, dreamers, and survivors. The city learned that its rhythm was not just in its music, but in the beat of its people's hearts, in their collective defiance, in their willingness to stand together against the intangible and the overwhelming. This shared ordeal had stripped away superficialities, revealing a core of unbreakable resilience, a profound understanding of what truly makes Memphis Memphis. The blues born from hardship found new depths of expression. Rock and roll, always rebellious, gained a renewed defiant roar. And gospel, ever hopeful, resonated with an even greater sense of grace and divine protection. The city's music became a language of both remembrance and renewed promise, each note carrying the whispers of an ancient battle won. A future fiercely secured. The core themes introduced earlier in this narrative, resilience, reinvention, adversity, and triumph, resonated with a far deeper, more mature understanding. Resilience, in the face of a darkness that preyed on the very essence of human spirit, was not merely enduring. It was about finding the strength to sing, to dance, to laugh when all seemed lost. Reinvention was not just a career change, but a spiritual rebirth for both a legendary icon and a beloved city, showing that identity, when rooted deeply enough, can adapt, transform, and emerge stronger than before. Adversity was not just a challenge, but a crucible refining and purifying the soul, revealing hidden strengths, and triumph was not merely victory over an external foe, but an internal awakening. Reclamation of joy and purpose that had been stolen. The broader meaning behind the king's life and journey, now clearer than ever, transcended his public image, his records, his movies. It was about connection, about the profound impact one individual through their art and their spirit can have on countless lives. And even on the metaphysical fabric of a place, Elvis was not just a performer. He was a living prayer, a conduit for something primal and powerful within the human experience. His voice, his presence, his very essence, became a symbol of defiance against forces that seek to diminish light, to silence creativity, to steal joy. He represented the universal yearning for expression, for freedom, for the unbreakable spirit of humanity. His legendary charisma, once seen as a mere stage presence, was revealed to be a profound ability to connect, to inspire, to uplift, a power that transcended death itself. He tapped into the collective unconscious, the shared memory of millions, to become a force of pure distilled hope. This was his true legacy, etched not just in history books, but in the spiritual landscape of a city he loved more than life itself. The story of the king who returned became not just another wild Memphis legend, but another indelible chapter in its rich, storied tapestry, a powerful reminder that legends never truly die. They simply wait patiently for the moment their kingdom needs them most, waiting in the wings of eternity, poised to protect, to inspire, to remind us of the enduring magic that flows through the very heart of the world. It reminds us that there are deeper currents beneath the surface of our everyday lives, unseen battles waged for the soul of places, for the essence of who we are. It compels us to listen not just with our ears, but with our hearts, for the faint, resonant echoes of history, for the whispers of ancient truths, for the undying power that resides in memory and collective belief. It is a story that speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, the enduring power of art to heal and to defy, and the profound, often unseen connection between a place and its people. So perhaps the next time you hear a blues riff wail from a Beale Street club, or a rock and roll anthem shake the foundations of a stadium, or simply feel the warmth of the Memphis sun on your face, remember the glow above Graceland, the impossible voice in the air, the city that faced down despair and found its ultimate rhythm. And every now and then, when the wind blows just right through the historic streets of Memphis, or a guitar riff hits a particular resonant chord that stirs the soul, you might just feel a shiver down your spine, a faint lingering echo of a familiar voice, and an unspoken knowing smile that the king is still watching over his beloved kingdom forever. Its guardian spirit, a testament to the enduring power of music, love, and an unbreakable legacy, a silent promise that the music will never truly die, and that the soul of Memphis, once almost lost, will forever beat with a triumphant, undeniable rhythm.